Hey guys, Dev with Crime Hive, back with the Lori Vallow Daybell case. And I just want to talk about some of my takeaways from the Melanie Gibb interview that she gave East Idaho News. It was a 3-part video series, and I'll provide links for each one. And I'm not going to talk about every aspect of each part. I just want to talk about a few things that I really stuck out to me. So we're going to talk about that. This is Melanie Gibb right here. This is actually a picture from the interview that she gave. And, you know, if you're wondering why this may be important, well, Melanie knows Lori better than probably just about anybody out there. And she is really on the inside with Chad and Lori with their beliefs, and she talks about what she thinks happened to the children. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go. So again, before I do, subscribe to my channel if you like my videos. This is Dev with Crime Hive. Let's get started here. So I'm going to refer to my notes here on this. A couple things I want to point out. Part 1, when she starts talking, she mentions that she and Lori go to an event in Utah. This is where Chad speaks at an event. Lori and Chad hit it off. And one of the first things I really thought was really interesting in the interview that just really stuck out to me was Chad, when he meets Lori, he tells Lori that they were married in a different probation, which is another word for, different lives. So right from the beginning, he's already talking about multiple lives and this probation concept, this multiple probation concept. And Melanie would later say in this interview that she believes the children never would have died. She believes they died. Spoiler alert, right? She believes that none of this craziness would have happened had they not believed in this multiple probation thought process. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So, another thing that they mention when Melanie said that Chad and Lori, when they started, after this conference, they started really getting to know each other, and they talked about they couldn't get a divorce. So it was interesting because of these revelations they apparently were getting. And so it makes you wonder, okay, they can't get a divorce, so how are they going to get rid of their spouses? They're both married at the time, and both of their spouses die. Just really strange circumstances with each one that police are still investigating. But big point right there with that. So a couple other things here. One thing I want to point out is really, I don't want to get too religious or anything like that with this video, but we know that Chad and Lori were LDS members. They with the church, they were part of that religion, but they really veered off towards these other thoughts. And so you've got this belief with Prepare a People, which Melanie explains is not a cult. She really says it's more of just kind of an idea and some things to help people prepare if there's pandemics and doomsday type scenarios. And Chad really went deep with that, and then he really started creating his own doctrine away. So he's got this LDS belief system that he has, growing up traditional religion, but he starts veering off with Prepare a People. He's writing doomsday books, and then he creates this new doctrine where he's literally writing out his own belief system almost as he gathers information and kind of uses it as a way to manipulate people, because he has this belief that he knows more than the average person. And hey, come learn from me, come join me, hear about my belief, and be in the know with this. So just wanted to point that out. A couple other things that I thought was important with the religious aspect is, and this is really important because it really gives you the idea of the frame of mind that's going on with Lori. And she really believes she was this head of leading these 144,000 people. And if you're wondering what is this 144,000, I'll just mention real quick. Some belief in the Christian church believe that it's just a symbolic number because there was 12 tribes, 12,000 people, and it was just a number of these people being saved when there's a second coming of Jesus Christ. Now, some people believe that 144,000 is the actual number. Only that amount of people will be saved, even though there's billions of Christians out there right now. And so I just wanted to mention that. And to give you the mind frame of Lori, she believes she is on a mission. And if anybody's not involved in her mission or doesn't believe in her mission, people start disappearing. People start getting killed. And people her own children are missing. And she actually, Melanie actually said that JJ and Tylee were getting in the way of her mission. So interesting statement there. Makes you wonder, what happened, obviously, because they're still missing to this day. And so the next thing I want to talk about again, as she continues this interview, part one, going down, just getting some main talking points here. She mentioned prepaid phone use. Lori had 3 phones, and she was getting calls on each of them. Makes you wonder. I know that there was one phone for Chad and Lori for personal communication, and it was very secretive. So, if you're wondering, again, prepaid phones, she would go to, your local Walmart, Target. You could just with cash even, you can get minutes here. You can put minutes on these phones, no contract. It's not linked to you. When you're done with those minutes, you can get rid of the phone. You can get another one. You can get multiple phones. And that's what she apparently did. So I'm really curious to know if police have some of this information, if they have some of her text messages, phone calls. What do you guys think about all that so far, just from part one? And I'm going to keep going down. There is more to this, obviously, as you can watch the full video, but I'm just giving some of my main talking points and perceptions, some of the notes that I took as I watched those. So feel free to leave your comments below as well. Subscribe to my channel if you like these kind of videos. A couple other things here that I wanted to mention. Really interesting here. We learn that Chad and Lori, because of their belief, they believe that if they got sealed in their temple, they would have life after death. The crazy thing about that is they did this while they were still married, okay? And they said it's okay, though, because they've been married before in previous lives. Remember, they've lived apparently 21 lives for Lori, 31 lives for Chad, 5 lives on this earth alone. Chad's over there creating a portal, and you got Chad over here creating portals in Lori's closet so that they can communicate telepathically, spiritually, because Chad had this vision apparently where, because of these near death experiences, he now has this gift where he can communicate in this other realm. And so it's just really bizarre, obviously. I mean, this is what we're talking about here. When you have people that are kind of believing these extreme beliefs, it's just not looking good with the missing children. I mean, it's just getting bizarre and more bizarre as we learn more about them and their beliefs. So what do you guys think about that so far? Again, we know Chad's wife Tammy disappears shortly after, shortly before they get married, before Lori and Chad get married. Charles dead, shot by Lori's brother, Alex Cox, right here, seems to be linked to most of these other deaths and even the missing children. So a lot going on here in this interview that she talks about, and then a really interesting quote that Lori told Mel is, if Chad is Satan, he sure is a good one. I thought that was a really interesting statement there. So that kind of concluded part one of the interview. And again, I'm just doing a condensed version of all this here. I'm going to go through part 2 and 3. You can watch the full videos. I'll have the links again below. Part 2 of the interview, though. So what happens here is Chad wants Lori to come to Rexburg. Apparently, she had to be there by a certain time. And what's interesting that I really documented here was Lori believed Tammy would pass away before she got there. So there's already this idea in mind, apparently from this revelation, that maybe Tammy was going to die in a car crash or some sort of accident. It doesn't happen, but makes you wonder if there was a planning process involved. Maybe she was almost killed in an auto accident. Maybe there's other people involved in this that tried to kill Tammy before. We know that Tammy mysteriously passed away in her sleep. Interesting article that I just recently saw. And I had mentioned this in a previous video, if you guys want to go and watch that, about my beliefs of how I think some of these people died. Same concept here, being poisoned. I talk about that in another video. And now police are suspecting that as they continue to wait for these test results from Tammy to see if there may be a poison involved. So I just wanted to point that out to you guys as well. A lot going on still with this case. It's far from over. Another thing here that I wanted to mention is Lori had told Charles that we know that Charles wanted a divorce at some point, but we know that Lori said she was never going to go through a divorce again. She just wasn't going to go through that. So Apparently, it worked for her because she found another way. Charles is dead, and that's the end of Charles, unfortunately. So moving along here, we know that Melanie visits Lori in Rexburg. This is while JJ was still there. So we know that Melanie had seen JJ there, but Tylee was not there anymore. We know that Tylee had disappeared, most likely at Yellowstone National Park. That was September 8th, 2019. And then, but Melanie does spot JJ there. The crazy thing about that part, Melanie mentions that Lori never talked about Tylee. Just almost forgot about her. Like, just never mentioned her, as if she's already gone. And did speak about JJ, but started saying that JJ was acting like a zombie. She really mentions this strange concept of zombie talk. And, even for Melanie, she's thinking this is very strange. She thinks JJ's quite normal. He had autism, so he would act out and he would have different moods and things like that. But it was normal for Melanie as she visited with Lori. So the zombie talk, what do you guys think of the zombie talk? I mean, it's pretty bizarre in its own. And when we refer to zombie talk, Melanie also mentions dark spirits. So when they talk about zombies, they're also referring to dark spirits. You've got light spirits, which apparently Chad and Lori are obviously light spirits according to them. Dark spirits getting in the way of their mission must be dealt with. So it's just a very bizarre case again. We know Chad really, when he was portraying his beliefs, he talked about his visionary experiences, and that, kind of just made people think he knew more than them. And so some people were drawn to him because he had, apparently had these gifts, these visionary gifts. And, even in the LDS Church, Melanie talks about how there are people that have that ability to kind of be visionaries, if you will, and receive revelation to an extent. So she talks about that, and that's why she kind of believed Chad. Didn't really doubt him fully because she thought maybe he does have this gift. So another interesting part here about the interview in part 2. This is still part 2 if you want to watch the full video. Lori talks about Charles being a zombie as well. There's other videos circulating online about that. Charles actually goes to court and actually tells the court that Lori needs a mental health evaluation. And she ends up going to this mental health evaluation. Lori does, and Mel goes with her. So apparently Lori passes this evaluation, no problem. We don't know what she told them, but she passes this. And this is when Lori's mentioning zombie and dark spirit talk. So, but apparently she passes this eval. She leaves. She's not. She doesn't end up staying there or getting treatment or anything like that. So really interesting about that part of it. And then as I go through, another interesting thing again, Lori believed that Charles was also supposed to die in an accident on the way from Texas, but he doesn't die. This is the interesting part, though, that I want to point out to you guys. I thought this was huge. So apparently Charles is on his way from Texas, and he doesn't die in this accident. Well, here's the interesting thing, and I didn't even realize this either. We know that Charles later died by Lori's brother, Alex. But here's the interesting thing. I didn't realize it was the day after. So Lori's thinking Charles is supposed to die in this auto accident. He doesn't. He comes home. Lori tells Alex to stay with her at the Arizona home. And she's very concerned about Charles being a zombie. Now, the other interesting part is Melanie stated that Alex fully believed the zombie talk, fully believed the beliefs that Lori had, obviously supported Lori, to the end. And so Alex is staying with Lori in this home, and then Charles ends up getting shot. So this is literally one day after Lori thought Charles was going to be in an accident. I thought that was huge when Melanie mentioned that in the interview. And again, the reason I'm mentioning this stuff too is police already know this. They haven't released all this information, but some of this information that Melanie's given, she's already told police this months ago. And so this information is kind of coming to light, and it can really help us piece together even more of the details of this case as we learn about this interview. So another big aspect to this case, a lot of insurance and money is involved here with Lori, and I'll probably do a separate video on this as well. But what we know is Lori told Melanie that Charles had a $1 million insurance policy. You know, we kind of learned about that from other media reports and things like that. We know that the insurance was switched, so it was switched to it was no longer going to be in Lori's name. And Lori thought that Kay, who actually got the policy, was a zombie and that everyone was against her. So you've got this $1 million insurance policy there. And then we know, though, that she did get money from her other husband that had died. And and I have another video that talks about that. I don't want to get too off topic here, but she received money from her previous husband, and then we believe that Tylee may have received money from Charles's death. And even though it did not go to Lori, it might have been through Tylee. Tylee's gone. It makes you wonder if Lori was trying to get some of that insurance money from somehow trying to get that from Tylee and have it go to her. So. And then we know that she'd also talked about getting some sort of Medicare or other benefit other than insurance when Charles passed. So she was really dipping into all these different ways of getting income from deaths of her husbands, disability from JJ because he had autism. So from what I think from what we gathered from that interview, there was about $6,000 a month between Tylee, JJ, husbands, between them, she was getting about $6,000 a month each month for that. So pretty crazy there. Safe to say she probably didn't need to get a job at that point. She just continued down that path of trying to get more money. It'd probably be a separate video, like I said, on that. So, and then again, I talked about Alex as we're going through. Couple more things here in part 2 before we get to part 3. We know that 2 days before Thanksgiving, that's when police call Melanie. This is where she basically goes against them. She doesn't want to lie for them because we know that Chad is calling Melanie on the phone saying, hey, tell police that JJ is with you. She decides against it. She spills the beans to police. That's also in another video, but I just wanted to point that out. And then a couple other things that I'm, let's see, we'll go down here a little bit more. Those are just other little notes about the other video that I mentioned, the affidavit. So we're not gonna mention that. We're gonna go to part 3 here because I want to do this all in just one video, give you guys kind of a little synopsis of this interview. Some of that other stuff I've already talked about in another video with the affidavit. So part 3 of the interview. Not much to this other than we know that Melanie learns that Tammy died from a different friend. Lori had never told her, so I thought that was a huge issue there. Lori's not telling Melanie that, this is several days after Tammy has passed, and she doesn't know about this. So another thing that was mentioned was, Melanie's asking where the children are. At a certain point, she's wondering, where are they? Because police are involved. And Lori just says, for your safety, I can't tell you. And she's saying that, there's people after them. And so, really, Melanie really doubted this when she knows about the honeymoon in Hawaii with Chad and Lori. She's like, okay, if you're telling me that your children are off running around trying to survive and try to be safe, why are you just laughing it up on your honeymoon in Hawaii? It just doesn't make sense, right? So even Melanie, unfortunately, she believes that the children are deceased. They are not alive. That was her belief. That was her thought, just based on Lori's beliefs, Chad's beliefs, their mission at hand. And I think a big reason for that she mentions in this interview is Chad and Lori really thought the world was going to end very soon. I mean, they still believe, I believe to this day, July 22nd of 2020. So that's coming up. It's coming up. So they believe that. And they thought that, with all these natural disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes, all this poverty, all the things that are going on towards the end of the world, no one's going to notice the children missing. No one's going to notice these people dying that are linked to them, because they're going to be off saving these 144,000 people. And, so they just don't care. They don't care. They're off on their own mission, and they're not worried about these deaths and things, because they don't, they know the world's going to end according to them. That's what they believe. So that was just an interesting take. What do you guys think about that aspect of it? Again, earthquake supposed to hit Salt Lake in 2019. That did not happen. I think Melanie believed that she had heard the world was going to end in August of 2020. She doesn't necessarily believe that, but that's what she had thought was sometime in August. So speculation on that. I still don't know really how they came up with those dates officially, but that's really the only other thing. I think the last part I want to mention about that interview is to this day Melanie still thinks Chad's a great person, loves him, but just thinks his teachings are dangerous. What do you guys think about that statement that she had made? And I think that's really the only thing I wanted to mention. I think one other interesting thing that I'll leave you guys with is just one thing I would ask you: if you watch those videos, listen to Melanie. You can tell a lot of the interview she's pretty quiet, almost shy, almost nervous through certain parts of it. But then when she starts talking about her religious belief, she all of a sudden goes into another, her posture is different. She's more confident. She's speaking, and it just makes you, I guess the point I'm trying to make with that is, when somebody's got such strong conviction, with strong beliefs about something, that's how you get these strange things happening that we're hearing about Chad and Lori. I mean, they apparently had this was a conviction. This was a mission. This was very driven type of ordeal that they're following. So it's not just some petty belief. I mean, they really believed it. If you listen to Melanie speak, listen to her tonality, listen to her watch her posture and how she speaks about her religion. It's just a small example of what these beliefs can do or make people do. So just want to leave you guys with that. Let me know your guys' thoughts if you like this video. I've just summed up the 3-part video series for you guys. You can also watch it all if you want. They're about 30 to 40 minutes each. This is Dev with Crime Hive. You guys take care. See you in another video.